Hi, I'm Steve Nelson with Yamaha. We're actually here today. We're at the Yamaha Motor Manufacturing Corporation, which is affectionately known as YMMC, amongst Yamaha employees. And the reason that's important is because we're celebrating the YFZ450 and 450R's 20th anniversary of being in production. This building that we're standing in, we're in the lobby right now, is actually where that vehicle is manufactured. It comes off the line here for global distribution. Of course, most of them stay here in the States. Today, we're here with a bunch of championship-winning racers. We're here with the media, and we're celebrating 2 decades of this thing basically being at the top of the sport, at the top of the podium, to the top of the dunes, to the top of the mountains, anywhere you could find pinnacle sport ATV performance. That's where the YFZ stood.
Man, the Yamaha YFZ, what an iconic machine. I remember how it all went 20 years ago. All the magazine guys probably agree it was better than what we thought it would be, because we had come off of the 400EX excitement in '98. We thought that was going to be something great, and in my opinion, that 400EX was a big letdown.
We started that project, probably around 2001, when we actually started developing it. That's right when I first started working at Yamaha, so it was the first project that I worked on. It was pretty near and dear to me. I grew up racing 3-wheelers, moved over to 4-wheelers. We were looking at this market. We'd already had the Banshee and the Blasters and the sport ATVs that were in the market at the time. Those weren't really focused on motocross racing. So we really saw this opportunity to expand that ATV product lineup to include that area of the market.
I started in product development with Yamaha in 1999. I was with Yamaha since 1998, but I started in product testing in '99. And back then we did a little bit of everything. We rode dirt bikes, street bikes, scooters, and of course ATVs. And I learned so much when I first started about the sport ATV market. Yamaha had 3 sport ATVs at the time. We had the Blaster 200, the Warrior 350, and the Banshee 350, which were totally different in their concepts. And that helped me understand that Yamaha was so entrenched in the sport ATV market, and we were in the middle of development with the Raptor 660 when I started, and that was really exciting for me to understand what that was going to do and how it was going to change the market in a lot of different ways. You know, the market was growing, the sport ATV market was getting revitalized. You know, some of the other competitors out there were reintroducing sport ATVs, and that was exciting for us. And I learned a lot about the Raptor 660. It was really supposed to cover the whole United States and be able to ride on the trails, fire roads, open desert, sand dunes. Really could do almost everything you could think of with a sport ATV, except have that true, hardcore, firm, fast, ultra-responsive 400 to 450cc motocross type feel, which was, Yamaha was a pioneer, of course, of the YZ400. So I really wanted to bring that flavor over to the sport ATV side.
So we really wanted to build something that was just modern technology, the latest 4-stroke development that Yamaha had at the time. No other manufacturers had the 4-stroke technology and performance that we had in that world. So we just wanted to bring that same level of YZ development into the sport ATV market. So it was really important to us that we didn't compromise that. And we did everything that we could as far as the engine goes and the performance goes to maintain that really high level of racing capability in the motor. It's a little bit different in the YZs that are closed course competition only vehicles. So, we had some considerations that we had to account for the ATV side of things, as far as noise and exhaust systems and those sort of things. But we really wanted to make sure from a performance level, the carburetor, the air intake, all of that on the engine side was maintained as much as possible and allowed us to have that capability when transferring over to a closed course racing environment.
That changed it from the YZ or a motorcycle characteristic, which those are closed course vehicles. So the YFZ needed to meet those standards, but we knew during development that a lot of people that were going to take and race the YFZ450 we're going to want to put it in that closed course spec. So during development, we actually durability tested it and suitability tested in that closed course spec, as well as what we called the shipping spec at the time. So we tested it in that compliance spec and then the closed course racing spec too, which was really unique and something we had never done before. was ride the ATV in that closed core setup, which was really core and essential to make sure we could give racers the confidence they could ride their ATV the whole season and have it last and perform for them all through that.
And then, of course, the chassis, that was another area that, we really felt like there wasn't a good option for customers out there from any of the OEMs. There was some aftermarket things that guys were doing. They're kind of cobbling stuff together and piecing things together, and different engines and different chassis and drivetrains and all that kind of stuff. So we felt like it was really important to offer that kind of package to all the consumers that are out there.
So we really started looking from the motocross perspective, what the racers were doing at the time, and we evaluated a lot of aftermarket setups, and then people that had put that YZ400 motor into current aftermarket racing chassis, and what did that feel like? What were the characteristics that made people want to race those versus starting with the average production sport ATV, which is really more trail focused?
We had a lot of conversations about it. We tried a lot of different things. We talked to a lot of the different racers that were in the market at the time, and all the old names that everybody would remember. The Tim Farr, Shane Hitz, Corey Ellis, obviously Bill Balance came in when we brought it to market. All those guys, helped us out and gave us a bunch of insight.
In about 2003, when this came out, I was winning championships. I think 250R based machines, 250R motors, and some other parts that we was using. Most of it was aftermarket chassis. There were the Leggers out there, Lone Star, stuff like that. At the time, I was using a lot of Lone Star stuff on an LRD aluminum frame, and had LRD backings with my motor and engine.
So that was really a lot of our benchmark, was what the racers were doing at the time with aftermarket chassis. What were they doing with A-arm suspension, steering geometry, but of course throttle response and engine character were really important. Quick, hard-hitting power to get you out of a turn and up over a jump. That was something that was really a core characteristic we were looking to achieve. Firm, flat suspension. Body roll was not your friend. Getting in and out of turns as fast as possible, but sliding. To me, the core of an ATV is sliding the rear end and getting through a turn, and how a sport ATV does that was really essential to the YFZ450 and how we developed it, making it really lightweight feeling. Again, most sport ATVs at the time weren't very lightweight feeling. They were a little bit heavy. They focused a little bit more on comfort on the trail, and the YFZ, that wasn't a core thing. It was about getting through turns, getting up and over jumps, and being as quick and responsive and as lightweight as possible.
From there, we kind of took it internal and, came up with the YFZ450. And, there was a lot of things that the riders were doing at the time. They were having to replace swing arms, and they were having to, replace all the suspension because it didn't have the capability. So, it was really important that, we provided a machine that the average racer out there, didn't have to buy a machine and then go spend a whole bunch more money on all those extra components.
Well, during YFZ development, starting with concept vehicles that really aren't even close to what gets produced, what got produced and got released into the market. Just the characteristics that I experienced in that first concept vehicle were just unbelievable power feeling. Again, the ability to slide through a turn with total confidence, and just, it seemed like endless power. Just rev so high, but had that incredible hard-hitting power feeling. Those are the characteristics we want to make sure got to the market the most. And I was so excited as it was getting close to being released to the public. Those characteristics still live strong in the production vehicle, and that's what was so exciting. What I look forward to the most was seeing people get to try that for the first time and experience it, and then of course take it to the track and on the trails and in the dunes.
Now myself, my history with the company and the unit specifically is I don't want to say unique because it sounds braggadocious, but I actually got hired with Yamaha because of this vehicle. When they came with both it and the Rhino in 2003 as 24 model, or as 04 model years, I should say, they needed a PR guy.
I think I was staying at Corey Ellis's house, and we got the call that Yamaha had something that they wanted us to see, test ride, sport quad / racing type of thing. What we had been looking forward to for so long, there it was.
So in 2003, I've been racing GNC ATV Nationals for about 10 years. At that point, I was riding a hybrid bike that Mark Lager built. It was the first one with a YZ400 motor in it. Had a couple of wins on it. So John Pillin was a good friend, called me and said, hey, Yamaha's doing a press intro and they're going to release a new bike and you really need to come and check this thing out and see what it is.
So 20 years, 2 decades worth of stories of YFZ, but one of the most interesting, or at least I say most interesting, it depends on who you're talking to, right, is one that came about early on. And by early, I mean the first press intro, first media ride, first time basically the public had been on the unit. It was at LACR up in the Lancaster, Palmdale area of California. Very fun event, a track event for what would be a very track focused machine, right? A lot of success, a lot of championships.
So when we showed up, found out it was the YFZ. Was really impressed with the bike at the press intro. John shed a tear. It was pretty emotional. But anyways, the press intro went really good. Bike worked really good. It was in stock form.
After the ride intro, we were allowed to have the machines, but not quite yet, I remember. So I had this idea, and I had to almost talk Corey into it. Let's persuade Yamaha to give us one a little early, like a week early only, and take it to Mount Morris. He didn't want to push any envelopes. He wasn't really fired up about it because it's a crazy deal. We're trying to ask Yamaha to do something special for us, and that's not, you don't want to go against the grain.
We like to run things at Yamaha methodically. We like to go in stages. We like to do things so we can, lack of a better way of putting it, control them. Well, early on, the YFZ and the passion that people had for that was uncontrollable. At the first wave of the first press event, we had a request to take one straight from LACR and have it go compete at Mount Morris with Corey Ellis aboard.
But it all worked out. My theory was Corey is exceptional. He was so good during that time. 2003 to 6-ish, he was a really good rider. And he was best at Mount Morris. He really had that track dialed in, and I knew it. I knew he could go there and win. And somehow I convinced the people at Yamaha, especially Steve Nessel, to agree with me.
That, as a PR guy, as somebody whose job it is to make everybody happy, that was a challenge for me because internally it wasn't going to make everybody happy. We have to make sure the machine is exactly performing as we would like it to. We got to go through it, and we got to do that all there on site instead of getting them all back to the facility or to our home base and going through them at our own pace. Instead, we got to take one off to the side and do that special one-off for Mr. Pellin and Mr. Ellis, who are orchestrating this little scheme to be the first ones to get the YFZ450 on the track.
So I remember sneaking that bike out the back somehow because we weren't supposed to have it yet, I don't think. And I think it was Steve, I gotta give him credit because he was a newbie at the time. I think he had just signed on because of the YFC, I believe. I can't remember how it went. I think we were in Corey's pickup or his box van, and we had to wait till the other guys were gone, and we parked it out back and made the switch real quick, and off we drove with this brand new YFZ in the back of the truck.
I smoothed over some stuff with some people internally who probably weren't so happy, but they understood. They understood, again, how excited people were for this machine to come to market and how excited they were to get it on the racetrack and start to compete with what was already out there.
John let me take his bike. I took it to Dan and Scott Butler, who was at Lone Star, and they built some parts for it. And in 2 weeks, we had the bike done. Wayne Meridian built some shocks for it. So Dan, Lone Star, built A-arms, steering stem, and an axle for it.
They stopped what they were doing at Lone Star and built A-arms, coordinated with Wayne Meridian, and got PP shocks on it for him, put a quick twist throttle on that thing, and I think they gave it off to Skylar Stewart, if I remember right, and he drove that thing nonstop to Mount Morris.
Took it to High Point 2 weeks later after the intro, and then I rode the pro production class, got a third. It was a little muddy.
I thought Corey was going to go win that class. It ended up being the other way around. He did win that day. He won on the YZ426 engine in his Lager chassis in the pro ATV class. He didn't win the new pro production class That belonged to Tim Farr, I believe, and Doug Gus second, if I remember right. The two Z400, heavily built Z400s, they had a year of practice under their belt to get that thing dialed in. It was heavily worked on.
Bike worked really good, but I didn't even get a practice on or anything until we showed up at the race, so it was all new platform for me.
And then what's really cool is only 2 weeks later, he went and won on it at the Loretta Lynn MX National, I think it was. And he beat the two Suzukis. He beat Tim Farr and Doug Gust. So I think a lot of the other riders saw it too, and they had to go get a YFC too, because you could tell that was the machine. That was what you had to have now in order to be competitive. And it all started at that Mount Morris round. And it all was thankfully to Yamaha. So that was a big deal for the future pro production class, because that just merged into the pro class. And we all raced, production made ATVs just like dirt bikes do. And it was a big deal because that was the decision maker for, I think, the other manufacturers, for the other riders. They got to see that this thing wasn't even developed anything. Corey went out and won on a stock YFZ, basically.
And then following that, we just really refined the bike that winter, and it came out in 2004 at Glen Helen, which was the first time they had, basically, pros were running stock bikes, and that was the highest pro class there was. So it was a production class for the pros, and I won the first round at Glen Helen. So really came out swinging with that bike, really showed what it could do, and was really happy with it. And was really happy to be a part of the whole Yamaha team when that thing first came out. 2005, 2006, I landed myself a factory Yamaha ride, and there we go, and had a good time.
It was, I think, going into the 2005 season when I first signed my first contract with Yamaha, and I had won three championships prior to that, so my last 6 was with Yamaha. So I was through there with Yamaha through the carbureted version and the first YFZ450 and several changes and developments that went on through that. And then I was when the EFI unit, the new one, come out. I was on that for 2 years before I actually got to retire. So I got to see a lot of the changes with Yamaha and how things progressed from the time it come out. And I got to be involved in the sport from an era of a lot of change with the 2-strokes to the 4-strokes and the factory rides and things like that. So I was fortunate to be in it when I was.
So my YFZ story is I was pretty late at the time, I thought, into my career. When the original YFZ450 was launched, Bill Balance actually reached out to me and asked me to race the 12 Hours of ATV America with him on the machine. The first time I slung a leg over it, I just knew it was the future and it was where I needed to be. And had the opportunity a few short years later to sign a deal with Yamaha, and I've been racing for them ever since, 2007 to still now as an ambassador in 2024. It's been an awesome ride, and I can honestly say that the YFZ changed my life. Took me from just a kid with a dream to being able to live my dream for the last 17 years.
So 2004, when the Yamaha came out, I was 10 years old, and I wasn't in the sport yet. So I started, the first time I rode a sport quad was the YFZ450R, and I've been on it ever since and loved it. And I had a couple opportunities to ride other quads, but I love the YFZ450R. So start to finish from my career so far, it's the best quad out there in my opinion.
2004, I would have been in the youth ranks working on my first youth championship on a 2-stroke machine. And then when the YFZ came out, I just was chomping at the bit. I would have been about 13 years old. I just couldn't wait to be old enough to be able to ride it and sit on it. I believe in 2005 or 6, I actually got my first YFZ. It was one of Brandon Summers, an old Yamaha pro rider, and the rest is history. I got hooked up with Bill Balance at the end of the 2009 season. I rode for the Balance Racing Yamaha team for 3 seasons and began winning championships in 2011. And I was able to get 74 career wins and 7 championships so far on the Yamaha. So, and I said so far, we're still going.
Guy was a test rider for Yamaha on dirt bikes. And in about 2001, they approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in helping us test this quad that's geared toward motocross? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And that was really my first experience of a quad on a motocross track. And in a couple years before it came out in production, I learned so much and became a much better rider. And it actually changed my life because I eventually went from 2 wheels to 4 wheels and spent 10 years racing 4 wheels and won 6 championships on the West Coast with the Quad Cross Series. And yeah, to be honest, it was such a cool part to be a part of the development of the YFZ from the original to the YFZ450R, and be able to race it for that long. It was awesome, man. I love this machine, and I owe a lot of my career to it.
To be a part of Yamaha and be fortunate enough to be in that position to be able to land a ride with Yamaha was huge for my career, because they had the most, even to still today, they're the only factory that's still out there supporting racing, getting behind the racing, and the passion to be out there and involved in racing. That's what Yamaha has over everyone and still has today.
Well, the YFZ450 has been a big part of my life. It's been in my career, my whole time, 25 years with Yamaha, and it's been an awesome experience to watch it grow as well. With multiple iterations, going back to the original, we even made some pretty significant changes in 2006 from the original 2004 model, and we made some big changes again in 2009 with the YFZ450R, with aluminum frame, fuel injection, or really the hybrid aluminum frame. Huge changes to the engine, the bodywork, the layout. Ergonomically, it was a huge step up. It was really exciting to be a part of that. And then 2014, when it got transferred here to production facility here in Noonan, Georgia at YMMC, we made some other really good changes too. The suspension got better. The tires got more comfortable and more precise and slid even better than they did going back to 2009. So seeing all those changes, being a part of it has just been an awesome part of my career and a key part of my life.
We feel like we did a great job with it. Everybody here is still, very passionate and loyal to that YFZ, and it still shows 20 years later. It's top of the class. Everybody out there that's winning is on the Yamaha, and here's 20 more.
20 years, that machine is iconic for our sport, and I'm really proud that they did all that, and it's cool that the YFC's still there and ripping.
It's been a wild ride. It continues to be a really good ride. It is still the market leader. It is still the performance leader, and it's still the choice of racers and champions everywhere. So today is special for us, for me individually, for Yamaha as a corporation, and for, I'll say, thousands upon thousands of sport ATV riders and racers everywhere.